faster. But you can play around with it, and there's still a lot of value to be had. I like the rune version of it because you get Felice, you get Witch of Sweets for the card draw, and you get that Word Wielder at the end of the curve to kind of just go, what's up?
What's up? Take a look. Here we go. We're kicking things off. There's Warfoki on camera. Thank you very much.
And it looks like it did get banned.
Oh, boy.
No!
I guess mission accomplished.
We were building it up.
I guess mission accomplished. Warfoki and ClassicMan. I'm curious to see who will move on to face off against Zerafine. Now, my prediction of having Fatina kind of move through in the winner's end foiled.
That's right.
But that's very exciting to me because I want to see more of what Zerafine can do and more of whoever wins this, what they can do against him.
Absolutely. And ClassicMan, a couple things that we wanted to talk about with his decks, if I remember correctly, is his Havencraft deck also supports the Aegis plan more than it supports the Aether of the White Wing plan. So I believe he is playing the double Curate. He's playing Dark Johns and all of those things all the way up the curve and not really looking to cheat anything into play through tutoring his deck with the Aether of the White Wing. I could be wrong. That could be Warfoki's deck. One of the two. He does have 2 Dark Johns in his hand, so maybe that I'm leaning towards Warfoki with that end of things. But in any case, I think both ways are good. Heavenly Knight is a great way to secure the game early. Curate is a great way to actually combat things like the Burncraft rune like we were talking about. So it really just depends on what your flavor is.
They have the Gemstone installed, and Snow White is here. And ideally, I feel like with the Snow White's effect, you can kind of delay the drop of the turtle. But if your curve didn't work out that way, what's the difference, right?
Right. Honestly speaking, when you're playing against Havencraft, you know Black Inscripture's a thing, you know Priest of the Cudgel's a thing. Princess Snow White's a little bit worse against its own kind than it is against everything else.
Yeah. I've seen your ways.
That's right. It knows how to deal with it. Priest of the Cudgel still one of my favorites. He knows your weakness. He sees it, he exploits it, and he gets you removed from the game.
A little bit creepy.
Yeah, he's a little bit creepy. And he swings like, what is it, a light post?
A light post?
Yeah, I think it's like a lantern light post type of thing.
May as well be. It looks like it.
And like, just look at the value of Gemstone Carapace. You have a 3/5 in play now that you only had to expend 2 play points to put into play. Like, so good. So good. Of course, Tribunal, an easy answer to that. And we're going to see this kind of back and forth play all the way up the curve, I'm imagining.
Yeah. Marcher's Tea Time is available.
And Marcher's Tea Time, a very cool card to try to think about when you're talking in terms of Aether of the White Wing. A lot of times you have to play a 5-drop so that you can pull with it, but you want to pull a very specific one like Ancient Lion Spirit. How do you get around playing bigger threats without messing up that curve? Marcher's Tea Time, a very perfect slot for that.
We see it has a ton of stats as well, which means that on the next turn, the Dark John is likely to be very effective if it's not removed. But I believe ClassicMan, at the very worst case, he can definitely just play a second Tribunal.
Yeah, Tribunals are always good, and especially in an Aegis decks like this, turn 6 is the important mark, because this means for ClassicMan, if he installs the second Tribunal this turn, it will actually go off the turn he can play Aegis and make it a lot easier to play. So I really like the Tribunal play this turn. Again, things to think about when you're playing with Aegis. Very similar situation for Warfoki, but he does not have the Aegis already installed in hand. He might have to wait until turn 10 to play it with his Aether, and which means he'd want to install it on turn 7.
So he does end up going with the Tribunal. And I feel like that sets up ClassicMan for the late game very well, especially being on the play and being that turn ahead. The Aegis might just have that one-step advantage that you need to...
This is one of those games. Like, everybody's playing less Aegis than they used to. Before it was 2, more than likely it was 3, just because you didn't have something that you could pull with it. Now, at the reduced numbers, it's really nice, especially in a mirror when you have the Aegis already in hand, especially when you're on the play for ClassicMan. It just makes the game feel so much better. However, in these mirror matchups, it's not just about Aegis anymore if you are playing the Summit Temple and the Heavenly Knight. Sometimes you can just end the game before Aegis actually comes out now. So there are definitely tools to fight it. It's not the same kind of pillow match it was before, who can play Aegis first. There are ways around it these days.
Yeah. That's very important to note. The Heavenly Knight. Such a huge tempo swing to be able to just start hitting for 9 turn after turn.
Yeah. I mean, even just 2 turns in a row, right? All you've had to have done is 2 damage up until that point, and then you just play Heavenly Knight, and the game's over.
Yep.
It's crazy. Yeah, not a lot of options for Warfoki here. Does he want to install an Amulet? Does he want to put into play a Dark John for it to just be eaten up by Tribunal? Probably not. This is kind of a tough turn. I think his real thought, like we were talking about, does he want to install that Tribunal for a turn 10 Aegis? Or does he want to just pass here?
I guess, I mean, if you're pulling your Aegis through Ether of the White Wing, you could just do the Ether of the White Wing of the Tribunal on that turn.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
So probably saving is the way to go, in fact.
And yeah, now we're just going to see if Classic Man wants to push here. He can push 3 damage, up to 5 if he uses an Evolution Orb. Again, he already has an Aegis for next turn. Doesn't need to save an Evolution Orb anymore because he's already done it very well up until this point. I think Classic Man is in very good position to win this game.
I cannot imagine... Okay, so he's going to get that storm damage down. And it's going to put a ward as well, which I kind of like over the tea time option, where you still do 3 damage, but you don't have the ward following it.
Right, and this card is just harder to evolve into. Pretty much takes out anything that tries to trade into it, so it feels very good. And yeah, I just don't see Warfoki getting around. He doesn't have any Summit Temples. I don't believe he's playing that version of the deck. And he doesn't have any way to close out the game before this Aegis comes down. So Classic Man's going to play out that Aegis with an Evolution Orb next turn, and then we're just going to see it go for possibly 2 to 3 turns, but it will end in fairly quick order after that.
Yeah. Where's the Mr. Full Moon?
Right! Where is the Mr. Full Moon? We used to see it at least as a 1 of or 2 of in the old Control Blood decks, but a lot of these Aegis decks have not been featuring it, even though they know they're going to be playing against a lot of Dragon, which interests me. Because if Bahamut's one of the scariest things out there, Mr. Full Moon also deals with that, deals with evolved Israfils and all of that nonsense as well.
Wow, interesting. Okay, when you pull the Heavenly Knight, because it doesn't get its fanfare, it won't be able to actually storm out.
Correct. It's the one downside. It's not a huge downside because you still do get a 7/8 ward for basically free value there.
Yep. And this is the big issue, going one step behind the Aegis. You had the wards, you avoided, I guess it was still incredibly valuable, right, to have that evolve over such a beefy card. Wow, 3 damage on that.
Yep, and now we're just going to see Warfoki try to be as aggressive as he possibly can because of the lack of board wipes. There's no Themis' Decree to basically back up these huge late-game Aegis plays.
And the Cudgel Evolve won't actually swing over anything. I guess the Tea Time Evolve could do it. Grimnir's not... I guess Grimnir could work?
Grimnir's an okay option. I think you'd rather save that for next turn when it can actually do a little bit more here. Just clearing out the Aether of the White Wing. He can evolve it to kill something. It is similar. I think Marcher's Tea Time might be a better option. However, he's got to... I guess you're right. He's got to assume that Summit Temple might be threatening another Heavenly Knight to go face here, so he's got to consider how much damage that can deal. That being said, if he leaves a 5...
I think he should full clear the board.
Yeah. I mean, if he's got a 5-attack follower left, that means 12 damage possible next turn with the Heavenly Knight, so he's got to consider that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And certainly if you leave the board up, right? Well, I guess there's not enough space to actually use the Dark Shot because he's locked himself.
Right. So honestly...
But you could throw the Ether.
I mean, Classic Man has... I mean, we're talking about if he doesn't use this Aegis to pop anything, he can easily do that and then just set himself in a very safe position yet again. And I think that will be the option.
Actually, it doesn't matter because Dark Shot in this scenario hurts you.
I guess that's true. It's absolutely true. Taking his time here. Let's see what he decides to do.
Basically, just hitting the damage output of the cards on hand because of that Summit Temple.
Now, if he does... I mean, of course we know that Warfoki doesn't have this, but if he chooses to go Aegis face here, that means he's technically opening himself up to a Blackened Scripture and Heavenly Knight lethal here. And it looks like he wasn't... And he did get the Blackened Scripture, but he does not have the Heavenly Knight to make the finish play here. So Classic Man actually taking a gamble here. and it's going to pay off for him.
Yeah, you need a ward to live. Oh boy, and that's not it. That's not it. So, Heavenly Aegis, through its unstoppable force, is able to take a game in the favor of ClassicMan, and the Havencraft Mirror is certainly interesting. I feel like I mean, this is a classic scenario of who has the play points early and who's going to be able to drop their big body first.
But you know what? As far as I said that Warfoki didn't have a really good chance that game, he played it optimally. He just didn't have the cards to push that. Like, he put himself in a position where he could win that game. ClassicMan fell into that trap, but Warfoki didn't have the finish there. I'm actually very impressed with Warfoki's play there.
Yep. I really enjoyed that. The interesting thing is, does this warrant, just for the mirror matchup, do you feel like this warrants using particular tech cards to stop Heavenly Aegis from being quite as dominant in the matchup?
So I actually learned something. So Summit Temple, when you have Heavenly Aegis in play and your Heavenly Aegis gets full mooned, you would imagine that it wouldn't matter because it deals damage equal to its defense. Turns out it does. I don't know why, but in some weird fantasy world, it still does 1. I know this.
So Full Moon just says this card does 1 damage.
Yeah, period. So basically, I think the way the card is intended to work is you're doing that, right? You're setting it to 1 attack. It can only deal 1 damage. Even though the wording on Summit Temple might seem like it gets around that, it does not.
Yeah. I would assume then really the way to understand Full Moon is that whatever number comes into this, it doesn't matter because the outgoing result will always be 1.
Always be 1. Yeah. And we know you can't buff beyond that after it's already been Mr. Full Moon. So I think Mr. Full Moon is a great option. Really, in any deck that you're looking to go super late with. Dragon doesn't really need it because they have access to triple Bahamut and Zeus's and all this stuff because they get there so fast. But if you're trying to do it in a fair way without ramp, Mr. Full Moon might be a great option to kind of like stall for at least a turn or not have Aegis mirrors be such a pressure on you.
I mean, even still thinking about it in the Dragon mirrors, you have all these big blowout options as well. But imagine the difference between, you know, playing something like a Scyther and trading it into the Bahamut, or playing a Scyther and then using the Full Moon as well, and then being like, okay, well, the Bahamut's not scary anymore, so I can use the Scyther to go face.
Yep, you can do more tempo advantageous plays with Mr. Full Moon, absolutely.
And that can change everything, right? I mean, when we're talking about Dreadseed combos that are just barely out of reach, maybe that Scyther swinging in for that 1 turn is the difference that you need.
That's right. And I'll tell you what, though. So Bahamuts, I've done this several times because I play Mr. Full Moons in my control decks. When you play it on a Bahamut, it makes the Bahamut very unassuming. However, a 1/13 is still very annoying.
Over the course of a bunch of turns.
It's not gonna destroy you like a 13/13 Bahamut would, but it will stay there for a while. Yeah. It's very annoying.
Yeah. The laser looks a little comical at that stage.
But you get more of them in a game, so I promote this. I promote Mr. Full Mooning Bahamuts because you get to see the laser beams every turn after turn. It's great.
All right, Shadow up against Haven, and classically, a lot of people have been less than comfortable with this match just because of the element of Haven being able to sidestep last word effects.
That's right. It has the banish effects. Black and Scripture didn't go anywhere. Priest of the Cudgel didn't go anywhere. So it can not only deny shadows that Shadow is trying to build up, it can also deny all those great last word effects that we've seen it employ in games past. So I believe that Havencraft, especially on the draw here, this is one of those decks and matchups that I feel like Haven is actually way better on the draw than it is on the play, just because you get those extra evolution orbs for the Priest of the Cudgels, the Ancient Lion Spirits to clear boards, and things like that.
How do you think, I mean, ClassicMan has a very late game oriented hand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's got 6s and 7s. Nothing lower. And that's probably the high end of his deck as well. I don't think there's anything higher than that.
Nope. That's about as big as it gets. I mean, I guess Aisha, right?
Nice. And I actually think that the carrot with this hand is
you need something to do. Yeah. Help you build shadows. If you can notice, Shadow still has 0 shadows at the moment. No last word effects even in hand or in play. And I think Haven has pretty much all the tools it needs. It has March Hare's Tea Time for the following turn, has Priest of the Cudgel, has the new John on turn 7 to wipe the board if he needs to. Looking really good. Now, in saying that, Warfoki has no way to actually win the game yet, but he has a very clear and cut way to get to the end game.
So I think it's really going to be a challenge. So the big thing here for me is that the Havencraft list does not necessarily have a good way to tempo out early. You know how we see maybe some in Statute Seraph decks, you know, have a big tempo swing early on. If you give them that space, right, then sometimes you can just lose to the amount of amulets popping. I don't know if that's necessarily the case for this
It
version.
can be, but you have to get a very, very good draw. And what I mean by that is multiple Gemstone Carapaces, Princess Snow Whites, and then that lead into a Dark John like massive push. But the order has to be really good, and if you keep a hand like that, you're not really giving yourself any reactive plays, so you've got to make sure that that's going to be good enough.
He does have the Dark John here. You do get a free Odile, but I don't know if that's...
Yeah, free Odile against this board still doesn't do very much.
Yeah.
Still looks like he's going to do it.
I think it's probably still the play.
He doesn't really have a lot of options here. I mean, he could play like Lurching Corpse, Demon Eater, and just draw some more cards, but more cards is not what he needs right now. He needs some damage to the face.
Interesting. So the Dark John, I think, might be a big card here.
Yeah,
Swing
Dark
for
John
7.
followed by New John feels really good here.
Yeah.
Especially when you have the Tribunal popping next turn. This feels awesome.
Man, and you don't have the shadows to... You can't even rely on Nectar. Oh, the Saris!
Saris is kind of good here. If you go Saris Lurching Corpse and you hit that sweet Tribunal pop, this could feel very good.
And you get the added bonus of having the heal. And it's that Sybil effect that we saw earlier, right? If you don't have lethal, do you really want to leave the Saris up, right? Because it's just going to keep healing.
That's right. I think that Classic Man has a few options to take here. If he plays the Zombie Party, he can't deal with the Dark John, right? So that's not the best option in my mind. If he plays Lurching Corpse, he can Demon Eater it, see what happens, and then try to make a push for the Dark John. Or he can do the play that I was talking about and try to, spin that that roulette wheel and hope to get the really nice Saris and Lurching Corpse play. But I don't know. Let's see what he decides to do here.
I guess you could also Lurching Corpse Zombie Party to guarantee that the only follower that gets hit by the Tribunal
That's
is
true.
the Lurching Corpse.
I like getting the heal effect out now, very specifically because of cards like Heavenly Knight.
Interesting.
Okay, this works too.
Okay. This is probably the safest.
This is definitely the safest. You get the heal, you get both of the followers, however the Saris does die.
We'll see if that extra 2 health, I mean, this is what we've been talking about all day yesterday and setting up today. How effective is the Saris really?
Dogma. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say that playing a singular Hollow Dogma in your Havencraft decks right now just gives it so much more punch. We saw.
I mean, look at that.
We saw how good it was yesterday with popping a Tribunal. Like, oh, Havencraft filled up their board. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Now it can actually do things that you weren't expecting.
I have to feel like probably using some form of immortal thing. Well, it doesn't have enough power to actually get itself removed here. Right? If you wanted to get the Thane's Last Word effect, it has a lot of defense when you evolve it.
It does. It does. It goes all the way up to 7.
Which is 2 off, I suppose, if you run it into the March Hares.
Yeah, this is a really rough spot. Yeah, there's not really much you can do. You just got to hope. And if we're talking about the extra 2 defense that Classic Man got, it's definitely not hurting right now.
Can he pull... Okay, so... He can actually pull Heavenly Knight, correct?
He can, but it won't get Storm. Correct.
We'll have the Storm. He could just wipe the board with Jean.
He's just going to play Jean, yeah. It's the easiest play, wipes out. Whenever somebody plays Thane, the easiest way to deal with all of it and not take any damage, just wipe it all. Just get it gone.
Yep, and so this is going to get to... The Evolve won't help, though, because Snow White's Evolve still leaves it at 2 defense.
That's right.
But this is tense.
Being on the back foot as Shadowcraft when you're on the play. This is what I was talking about. Havencraft does such a good job at dealing with everything Shadowcraft does, especially on the draw. As you can still see, still has an Evolution Orb at the ready as well. Just feels super good to be in Warfoki's position here.
I wonder... He still has an Evolution. That's so dangerous when your opponent has an Evolution Orb in this scenario because it's very hard to justify leaving anything on the board up.
Right.
Because they play a card, evolve, and then all of a sudden you're in a position where both these cards can swing. You only have 4 health. It's done. But I feel like ideally in this situation, you kind of want to just get away with playing the White King and kind of building up that board so then you set up an Ector turn.
I think you actually have to Ectar here. If I'm Classic Man, I think I'm setting up and installing an Ectar here. I probably would have done it before the White King, but it looks like he's just gonna roll the dice here.
Oh god! Oh god! Oh! So what is the eventuality of this scenario? You have the Necro Assassin.
Yep, he's just hoping to not be destroyed on this next turn. Like, 2 damage is not enough. And as we spoke about, I'm glad we get to see it. It's not going to matter because he has the March Hare's Tea Time.
Yeah.
But if there was no March Hare's Tea Time or no way to deal extra damage here, that 2 defense would have mattered.
Yeah.
Right? So every little point here and there helps. I think we're just going to chalk that one up to Classic Man not really having the greatest draw against a really bad matchup when Warfoki had all the answers he did.
When you pull all your late game options in the early game, you do know that, okay, I have the options here, but you need to draw into your curve.
You have to.
It was just so much lost tempo, and I was trying to allude to it a little bit in terms of the things that Havencraft can do if you give it space, right? We've seen games where Stormhaven, or, you know, the list that Akamaru read, the Alana's list.
Oh, right, that he brought to the World Grand Prix.
When you give Haven enough space, those things can get out of control.
It can just
very
do
quickly.
something stupid. Yeah.
I think this list does have that opportunity, but it's much less common than what these other Haven lists can do. But we still saw that tempo advantage, especially once you activate the back-to-back kind of Dark John into Light John.
Yeah.
That ends up getting real
board
tough.
wipe into pump, into board wipe, and then restore defense to all my followers, into maybe Heavenly Light, into Aegis. Like, it's kind of like a wrecking ball at a certain point. It kind of feels like, you know what, in a very different fashion, it is like the reactive version of Burn Runecraft. Like, where Burn Runecraft applies this pressure and just keeps pressing damage, Havencraft deals with everything you possibly can deal with and just keeps setting up this huge board that is so impossible to get rid of.
I actually really appreciate this flavor of Havencraft deck. I think it feels like probably the more... I feel like it feels more consistent than previous
100% more
Havencraft
consistent.
decks that we've seen.
Yeah, before it was like, okay, if I don't draw my early game, I lose. Now, Havencraft has actually a good early game. It's got Princess Snow White, it's got the Gemstone Carapace, it's got Black Inscripture, it's got all of these cards that can utilize early to get tempo, as where before it was just you needed your Black Inscripture on 2, otherwise you were going to fall very far behind.
All right, we've got the Skull Ring and Andrewalphus.
This is definitely a curve we've been talking about for 2 days. Yep, Andrewalphus, of course, being one of the greater ones to get there early so that you can have it back for your evolution turns.
And in this case, we see again the Ceres in hand on the play, so you have to play it on 5 if you want to evolve it.
This is the one downside to Ceres, okay? On the play, your best curve is Prince Catacomb or Necro Assassin or something beefier. Ceres doesn't feel that great on the play. It's better on the draw, but when you're on the draw, this is something that we've talked about for seasons. You have to be able to win when you're on the draw, okay? This is something that your deck has to do, and if it doesn't have the options to do that, it's going to feel really bad, especially in mirror matches or things like that where you do get put on the draw and you don't have those options to come back.
Yeah, Music Man has a choice now. Do you want to play the more efficient play points, or do you just want to drop a 1/2 cup?
Honestly, going into 5 play points on an empty board against Dragon, I always assume Draconic Fervor because Sybil's a bad play. You don't get the heal. I think Ceres is a great play here. It's really hard to do anything about, and especially against Dragon. Like this, literally 100%, guys. If your opponent has an empty board and they're going into turn 5. Draconic Fervor should be at the top of your mind. What's the best play against Draconic Fervor? Then you go downwards. What if they have an Aiella with Evolve and a Burn spell? You know, what else can they have? But it looks like Classic Man has the same read I do.
Yeah.
Draconic Fervor being the best play here.
There it is. And I think this is probably the best scenario, right? As you mentioned, Ceres is very good at fighting off the board and healing up, like defensive-oriented. But if you're trying to build out a board that can be aggressive, Ceres is still good because it's kind of beefy.
You can't trade into it. Like, you still have to use an Evolution Orb to get over it. It's still good. You know what I mean? It's not the worst thing in the world. And I think Classic Man has a really good option here. I think he's going to go with an Evolve on the Andrewalphus. It's the way to keep pushing tempo.
Yeah, and you definitely want to be playing around Salamander.
Right? You want to be playing around Salamander. And it basically just gives more value to everything in your hand. I mean, you can evolve for 1 extra point of damage and make that Ceres really big, but it does not give you any late game potential.
Yeah, I think Andrewalphus. Yep. And I think this is really going to help Shadowcraft feel comfortable with the rest of the match.
Yep. That's how it does it. And then I would just slam down the Goblin If you're expecting a Breath of the Salamander, you just want to get rid of the smaller follower and draw the card. But it looks like he's gonna be like, you know what? I'm gonna make you have it.
Here's the Bellinus, and we see that Warfoki is prepared for that.
We've seen this so many times with Dragoncraft. They top deck the Blazing Breath. Right when they're it's so crazy.
What is this saying? A wizard shows up precisely when he needs to.
Ah, yes. Aha. Oh, some Gandalf references there. Perfect.
Okay, so the board is reset. You've got your Aisha on hand.
Yep.
So
I think this is
there's
Odile push. This is another good reason why Odile's in the deck, is it just deals some damage.
Yeah.
It's one of those cards that doesn't require an evolution orb. It can deal some damage to face and still basically keep tempoing you. It doesn't put a lot left on the board. You know, you got a 6/1 left, but at least it dealt some damage. I think it's a pretty good option here, and you don't really want to expend any of these other resources at the moment.
This has been tough for Warfoki, I feel like. He kind of hasn't had the opportunity to ramp. Is just trading 1 for 1. It hasn't dipped into his evolution orbs, which I think is pretty fantastic.
Very good.
But it's actually amazing that he's been able to do that. His removal spells and drawing the Blazing Breath has been such a boon for him.
Absolutely, and his draw has been pretty good, especially with that Blazing Breath, to basically just take the tempo back over, and then get into the late game here. I think Warfoki's in a great position here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Aisha is in hand. Can he play around it well enough to actually finish the game?
We'll see. He's going to bump up a little bit of health here with the Sybil, and that's really the name of the game at this point, right?
Yep. Stay above 10, please, please, please. And honestly, I've seen games go so long that, you know, almost everyone who plays Aisha plays 2, just for consistent draws with it. You can get to 10 shadows twice and pop with Aisha twice. Like, it is definitely possible. So if you cannot close the door fast, and this is kind of what I was talking about between regular Ramp Dragon and Combo Dragon, sometimes you can give Shadow enough time to do it.
Dragon is on 9 play points, which means it has the opportunity to respond with something like Bahamut, and you're starting to really have to think about, like, Dreadsea turns, you know. That's going to change the way that ClassicMan has to approach his playing.
This is a rough turn for ClassicMan. I think the best option is probably Zombie Party with an Evolution Orb on one of the zombies. The bad part about this is no more Evolution Orbs. He can't really answer anything else for the rest of the game without having some kind of a combo.
I really feel bad Evolution because you know very likely that that's not going to survive.
Right. Right.
And it wasn't a critical point in the game, too, in the sense of, like, oh, I know that he spent a lot of resources on this board state, so this Evolve is going to help me survive that.
This is almost why I think Thane is one of the biggest linchpins in the deck, right? Without Thane in this late game scenario, you don't really have a way to pressure anything. It's kind of just like, I'm going to throw something at you and see if it sticks. Thane is one of those cards that's like, hey, I'm here. It's my party now.
Yeah.
Yeah, react to me.
So, despite not having any ramp, Warfoki makes it to playpoint 10 with 2 Evolution Orbs up, which I think is incredible for his late game here.
And yeah, now he's just going to start drawing into basically all the options he needs. I think Bahamut play into a Zeus, something like that, feels pretty good. We know that ClassicMan has the answers to these, so he definitely has time. Warfoki, I still feel like, needs to install something. Maybe you go with the Canyon of Dragons here pretty soon so that you can start getting that damage in.
I definitely think... So the only thing, and it happens with Polyphonic Roar, right? If you play that card in a certain time, and then your opponent forces you to play a Bahamut, it can feel pretty bad, right? Because you're eliminating your own amulet.
Right. That is true. So maybe get all the board wipes out as early as you can.
Get value off of them at least.
That's
definitely
right.
Don't waste them, but...
That's absolutely right. And yeah, every position that ClassicMan is in here with what we can see in Warfoki's hand just feels bad. He's already got the next Breath of the Salamander for a Thane play. Looks like he's just going to go with the removing the Bahamut play. Definitely a good choice.
And
Definitely
draw
a
the
good
card
choice.
Yep.
We've talked about this too. The last thing you want to see in the late game is that big nose right off the top of your deck. Never feels good.
I guess you may as well throw it out, no?
Yeah, probably saving it for another Necro Assassin play. Cannot hate on that.
Yeah, I guess that's smart. And you also don't board lock yourself.
Right.
Not that I think everything is going to survive here, but
Yep. Very smart Evolve Orb here to just basically now he's going to start producing tempo. Still wants to keep the board under wraps here, not take too much damage.
yeah. Canyon of the Dragons. Such a great card.
There it is. There's a second Aisha. So now it's about this double Aisha game that we were talking about.
Oh, boy.
I almost want to say go in with it right now. Deal the 12 damage.
You're already so close. I mean, that skull... Well, I guess that Skull Ring is going to Necromancy itself, right?
It necromancies itself, so you're down 1 from it. But I think that's acceptable. That's an acceptable loss. Just go.
Interesting.
Ooh, using the shadows like this is very interesting. When you have a clear-cut line to just Aisha, I think you just go for it. Now it's not such a clear-cut line.
He's going to have to gain back the shadows here. And that means he's going to need to produce bigger boards very soon. I wonder if he's going to Demon Eater.
He might. I don't know. Saving Demon Eater for like a Thane turn seems a little bit better.
Yeah, certainly having, especially without Soul Conversion now, it is your cheapest way to pop something like a Lurching Corpse or whatever.
And he has no Evolution Orbs left, so in order to get that ward on command, that's really the only way to get it done. Yeah, I really want to see this game if that Aisha would have been played this turn. You know what I mean? I feel like it would have changed this game a lot. It's not like Classic Man's in a bad position. He's still trying to do the ordinary, get you to 10, play my Aisha.
So I feel like Odile feels really good in this scenario because you don't have Evolution Orbs.
Yep.
Having that rush plus the 2 damage across the board is absolutely key.
But there is double Sybil in hand. This is not a bad play. Even just double Sybil into a 5/5 dragon at the end of turn, it does leave the Ektar in play, but that's still leaving yourself above that all-important 10-life threshold.
Man. Though double Sybil would, I feel like, especially with an Evolution Orb, be a very good response to just dropping Aishas. You know, healing 6 at the end of every turn. And, like, do you still want to go double swing face if you're healing 6 every turn?
And yeah, now Classic Man is left with less time to do that. I really feel like, again, we've picked out very big decision plays and branches in these games. I feel like the Aisha would have put him in the driver's seat with Warfoki having to answer everything he's doing. But instead of doing that, now Warfoki is presenting all of the tempo, and Classic Man has to answer everything that Warfoki's doing.
Yeah.
And as a Shadow player, you don't really want to be in that defensive spot because you don't really have the Bahamut's and all these crazy things to just answer back all of these huge boards all the time.
There's not a clear-cut answer for any of this either.
Yeah, like Odile doesn't feel good here. You could do the Thane play with the Demon Eater this turn. And yeah, I mean, you could go for Necro Assassin play.
I think he spent his Demon Eater.
Oh, that's right. He spent it last turn. That's right. He did not save it.
And this is exactly why you were saying you should probably save it.
Yeah. Drawing extra cards is good, but also utilizing all of your cards to their fullest advantage. Also very good. Yeah, now it's just rough. I mean, he could have played Aisha to wipe this board and still have one left over. But it looks like he's opting for a Necro Assassin play and a hope to hit.
Oh, Canyon of the Dragons is really hurting. Oh, but it leaves a heal, so you're going to go up to 20.
Yeah.
Which is, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And then there's going to be another 5/5 that hits play after this turn. I think Classic Man has backed himself into the corner. I think now, when we look back on it, that Aisha play was the only appropriate play.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, look at the board.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Can't
What do you do? What do you do?
Yeah. 2 ladies and a dragon.
Big ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Sybil's probably a dragon. She's like lady form that turns into like a dragon.
Like something of the water worm or something like that?
Yeah.
What is her full extended name? Sybil. I'll have to find that out after this.
We'll have to remember it. Yeah, Sybil of the water something.
All right. Yeah,
Classic Man really just in the tank here. What can I possibly do? Looks like he is going to have to cash this Aisha in to be defensive here, unfortunately.
Yep. That's pretty good, having the double swing.
Oh, it's amazing. Being able to clear out a Nisserfil and a Sybil with a single card is very good.
But still leaves a 5 damage up here. Oh!
There we go. Now we're going to see the train start to roll for Warfoki here. Zeus followed by an Azidahaka. We're just getting the damage in.
I feel like this is the first time we're seeing Azidahaka on the Shadowverse Open. Because a bunch of people were playing it yesterday, but we never saw it draw.
I think we saw it one game, but yeah, with all of these Dragoncraft players, not all of them, but most of them playing just one copy of it in their deck. Again, for those of you watching, I think that's a mistake. I think you should play more Azidahakas in your deck. But yeah, this is just when you start tempoing the game and then you just shut the door.
There's no way to double swing because the Aisha will be destroyed by Bane.
Yep. No way through it.
It just has to pass, and Warfoki very happy about that.
And he will be the second one going to the winners. Well, I guess the winners semifinals. Yes, coming up next, right?
So no, he will actually move on to the winners, to the upper finals.
Upper finals, right.
And he's going to face off against Zero Fine.
Zero Fine.